Hey, what's up, Battle Buddies? We're here for the very first Battle Buddies podcast with myself, Jay Irwin, otherwise known as Woodcock, and my buddy over there, who is Corey Haynes.
What's up, guys? How's it going? We figured we would just start it off today since this is our first episode. We're just going to go over the subject of getting started. That is, getting started in milsim. That's kind of how Jay and I met each other, so we figured that would be one of the topics we'd hit just right off the bat.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
We just wanted to tell our stories about how we got started in airsoft and in milsim. Jay's going to tell how he got started, and then we're going to go back and forth, and then I'll let you guys know what my story is. So
absolutely,
let's go ahead and kick it off, man.
Yep. So I got started in milsim in around 2007. So I got out of the Army in 2005 as a armored cavalry officer, and my buddy, some of you guys may know, best friend for life, is Kaiju, otherwise known as Rob Minor. He kind of exposed me to it in 2005. We talked a lot on the phone, and then I really didn't have an interest at that time.
Was he already doing it?
Yes.
Rob
had been doing it since he got out of the military in 2005 as well. He had been to a lot of John Lew events, and they were out in California at the time, which obviously has a big milsim airsoft scene to begin with. So he had started playing and getting pretty in deep with buying gear and buying guns and all that kind of stuff. So we, obviously have kept our relationship going up at that point in time via the phone. And so he would, we'd always be talking about it, but I really didn't have an interest. And then in around 2007, I don't know what it was. I think we had talked on the phone. He had already moved to Germany at that time. His wife was Air Force, and they got stationed over there. And we were talking, and he just kept talking about how much fun it was and how realistic it was as far as the 1-to-1 ratio for the guns, and obviously using kit that you could already use for, everyday civilian prepping or, just going to the range or whatnot. And so I started looking into it, and I lived in Johnson City, Tennessee at the time, working for a company. And Parafrog was up there and over in Kingsport at the time. And so I started visiting over there and just kind of started buying equipment. And once again, for me, it was a matter of I could use it in preparing, once again, being a civilian prepper, or, use it for going to the range. I was kind of into competitive shooting at the time, real steel. And so that is what kind of got me into buying gear again, and then eventually leading me to buying a gun, which was, my first gun was a King Arms. It was just a standard M4.
Right.
And then from there, it just kind of took off. And then I got out of it in about 2008.
So prior to talking to Rob, you had no clue what airsoft was. No. You didn't see it on the internet or anything like that. It was just
never had an interest in it. Never really played paintball or anything like that.
Right.
When I got out of the Army in 2005, like most guys, they get out of the Army, and I'm sure it was the same for you. I got out and didn't want to touch anything.
Right.
Dealing with military.
Yeah.
I didn't, a lot of my gear I threw in a duffel bag, threw it up in my attic, and that was it.
Yeah. I still don't watch like military shows and stuff.
It is very difficult.
I don't know if it sets me off or it makes me miss it, but I still, to this day, like I don't like military movies. I don't like military shows.
Yep.
But for some reason, milsim is something that I can do. I don't know. It's kind of weird because I think that's about as heavy as you can go as far as bringing back old memories and stuff like that. But
and a lot of people have questioned, is it good for vets that have PTSD? I've never had a flashback or anything like that on the field. I've never had an anxiety attack.
Right. I've heard stories of that happening.
Yes.
So I think that depends on the person.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I would say if it is something that sets you off or makes you feel bad about yourself or your past experiences, definitely walk away from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't consider that to be a hobby for you. If it's going to put you in that kind of place.
Right. It worked for me.
Absolutely.
I found it to be highly therapeutic for me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I can't do the TV shows, and maybe it's because they're so far fetched and dramatized. Because not every day in Iraq was some crazy firefight. They don't ever want to touch on the boring stuff. Everybody's a superhero in those shows.
Sure,
and so it's kind of.
I think as well as a lot of times we as former military or vets have a tendency to over scrutinize uniforms and gear and vehicles. And, for me, I think it takes me out of the realm of enjoying the movie to the part where I'm like, well, that's not realistic and that's not how things are done. So for me, I can sit down and watch them, but a lot of times I end up finding myself not enjoying the movie as much as other people might, that haven't experienced the stuff we have.
Yeah, my experience isn't. I guess it's kind of different because there was nobody doing it, like where we were at in Moore, Oklahoma at the time. We ended up linking up with a team down in Norman eventually, but there was nobody around. It was just me and one other guy that kind of started it up. But whenever I got out of the military, I got out in 2007, and I was unemployed for about 6 months while I was going to school because I was expecting to get deployed again. They told me I was going to get stop lost, and then pretty much in a weekend had to pack up everything and move back. So they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're not getting stop lost. You're done. Get out of here." And so I came back here and showed up on my parents' porch with a U-Haul truck and a wife, and I was like, I don't have anywhere to go, don't have anything to do. I guess I'll go enroll in school. Well, that led to a job in graphic design working for my wife's uncle. He was a screen printer. And I had a lot of free time because we weren't super busy sometimes. So I was just on YouTube a lot. And I came across, and I think it was in Japan or something, this old beat down bunker where a bunch of people were shooting each other with guns. I was like, what is this? Is this tiny paintballs? What is it? And that kind of sparked my interest. And, it said airsoft, milsim, whatever down in the column. So I just started watching more and more and more videos. And I contacted a buddy of mine named Bobby. I was like, dude, you got to watch these videos. So he starts watching the videos. He's like, dude, we need to buy some guns. I was like, yeah. And what's funny is I think we were probably 13 at the time. There was a store called US Cab. And they sold these 1/3 scale MP5s. They ran on 4 AAA batteries that would last about 5 minutes. And they shot, little BBs. And we went and we played around in the yard with those. And this was essentially, bringing back some good old memories of he and I shooting each other in the backyard, getting in trouble for getting BBs all over the house. So we're like, dude, let's do it full scale. Let's go ahead and buy some. So we went to EVIC. He went and started up a business so he could get wholesale prices. Not to or anything, but he started a business, so he could get the wholesale prices. So he set up a wholesale account with EVIC. And I think we bought 2 or 3 of the JGM4s.
Nice.
Just so we had one that we could give to somebody else to try and get them, into it with us. Yeah. And so, we got the typical cross draw vest,
cross draw,
$20, $25 cross draw vest to get started and a couple mags.
Now you got to remember 07, the cross draw vest.
Yeah, and it was a lot cooler back then. Wouldn't get you shamed like it would now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he and I started playing, bringing them to church, showing all our buddies at church, all the buddies we had at work. I'd started working at a machine shop a little while after that. And we were working together, so we were spreading the word, and we grew it. It only took us probably 3 months to grow it to a group of 25 people.
That's pretty awesome.
Because airsoft is one of those things where it seems goofy when you're on the outside, but the second you pick one up and you realize how cool it is, especially if you're a guy that likes guns.
Yes.
The chance of you ever actually getting to shoot at somebody is 1 in a million.
Yep.
So whenever you can go actually look down the sights at a moving target that's another human being and get that experience, it gets that adrenaline going.
Yep.
And so we would take these, and we tried to keep it at least 14 and up. We didn't want kids younger than that. And we ended up linking up with a guy at our church who had a bunch of property, and we went out there and we played, and it grew up to about 25 people. And then we started reaching out to other groups in Edmond, which connected us to a bunch of new friends. Same down in Norman, a guy named Coco that goes to a bunch of American milsim events. He had a team of 10 or 15 down there. And I played from 2007 to about 2010. And that's when people started, graduating from high school, graduating from college. We had a bunch of veterans that went back to active duty, that never really readjusted. So they just went back on active duty. So they went their separate ways. And then it kind of died off. It died off for a long time.
Sure.
Into 2010 is about when I quit playing. And then through my company, printing T-shirts, I got hooked back up with TA Airsoft in 2014.
Yeah.
And I got invited to an American milsim event. And that's when it transitioned from just airsoft to milsim.
Yep.
Because I'd never heard of it.
Yep.
And I think it was, they had a video playing in the store, and it wasn't Broken Home. I forgot what it was called. Oklahoma Invasion.
Yeah.
I think is what it used to be called.
Yep.
And they went to it, and they were just blown away by it. And so that's when they, got the store up and all that stuff. But,
it seems
that's kind of my journey into milsim.
Yeah.
Into milsim
from
airsoft.
And it seems like most guys that are into airsoft or milsim, it seems like they go in and out of it.
Yeah.
like I mentioned, I got out of it in about 2008. My dad had become terminally ill, and unfortunately we lost him in 2009. But the thing that I saw was then around 2011, I was living in Arkansas at the time. That's where I grew up. And there was a group in Arkansas called the Outlaws. I can't remember. It was I can't even remember what the full title of it was, but I linked up with some guys, like you said, that I felt were probably out of the group of airsofters, more focused. One of them was a National Guard staff sergeant, and really good dude. And we had a couple civilians that really understood or really enjoyed the more military aspect that could be had within airsoft. And so we went down and played at I want to say it was 2012. We went down to Fast Action Airsoft in Texas and played Grozny. It was a game based on the invasion of Grozny,
right?
With the Russians and the Chechens. But that was the first time I met JP and Blake was at that game.
Okay. Were you playing anywhere locally, like on the weekends?
No. Well,
did you just go straight into it?
No. We were I had played a couple local games there in Arkansas, and then I would say my first big game was that Fast Action Airsoft, and it was an old helium plant, and I just fell in love with it. Now, at that point, I still was probably a little bit too hot-headed to play, as me and Frosty had a run-in.
Yeah.
So,
was that just part of the readjustment phase from the military?
I think for me, getting out of the military, there was a loss of that camaraderie that I felt that I had in the military. And so for me, it was more looking for groups of people that were like-minded, that were, obviously Second Amendment supporters.
Yeah.
Either, prepping, just being, not necessarily deep into prepping, but, just being prepared civilians.
Right.
Or, guys that liked military, but maybe for whatever reason couldn't join.
Yeah. Because I found, like, whenever I first got out, I had that same issue.
Yep.
Like I played indoor soccer. I played softball. Played some flag football. Some other just random recreational sports to keep myself active. And I would lose my mind at just the drop of a hat. And I think it all stems from the training in the military. I mean, they beat you down to like just the simplest idea of if you fail, you die.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's so hard, when you get out, to adjust to being like, oh, I can fail. I just need to learn from it and do better.
Yep.
Which that you can still do that in the military, but there are instances where the consequences are a lot more severe.
Yeah.
But they just want you to treat everything like that. So when you're in that firefighter, you're in that combat environment, you're not jacking around, and you're not going out there with like, oh, I'll give it a good old fashioned try.
Exactly.
You have to go out there and do, because if you don't do, you die.
Yeah.
And it took me 3 to 4 years to really get in the mindset of I can fail. It's okay to fail. I just need to learn from it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I fortunately, I think by the time I really got into milsim, that had really passed. And there were some instances, especially with some of the other veterans, when we were out there playing, where we had to kind of calm each other down, because we're out there playing with 14-year-olds. They've never touched a gun before in their life.
Yep.
And they're out there. We're sitting there low crawling, through a bunch of thorns and stuff, and they're tromping around behind you, making all kinds of noise.
Yeah.
And you have to be like, hey man, listen, that's not the way you sneak around. But a lot of times it didn't come out so politely.
Yeah.
So it took me a long, long time, and my wife would be more than happy to tell you about it.
Yeah.
It took a long time for me to settle back down. But
my wife would agree with that statement. But for me, I think having been an officer in the Army, we're trained to obviously make decisions on on very, very limited information, snap decisions that obviously could affect somebody's well-being or life. So when I first started playing or went to that fast action game, for me it was seeing all of this going on, but yet not wanting to put input in, but knowing that I didn't have the street cred necessarily to that someone's going to say, oh, well, who's this guy and why do I need to listen to him? And so, I played that game, and then around, I guess, 2013 kind of fell out of airsoft again. Went back into competitive shooting, doing some IDPA and some USPSA and stuff like that, a little 3-gun action. But it wasn't until 2014 that my good buddy Kaiju came back from Germany and went to work for Red Wolf Airsoft as their U.S. wholesaler.
Right.
And he's what dragged me back into airsoft milsim. And of course, I went screaming and yelling. But it was an opportunity for us to, I went to the different American. Well, the first game we went to was a John Liu Irene event down at Fort Hood.
Okay.
And then the next game we went to was the American Milsim Games, which...
what was your first American Milsim?
Mine was ESR 3.
I think that might have been my first one also. Is that the one in the snow?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a...
What's funny is here's how I ended up there and getting involved in milsim. I went to deliver shirts to TA Airsoft, which is now Tier 1 Airsoft. It's changed hands, I think, a few times. But I walked in, delivered the shirts, and I don't know how it came up. Actually, I do know how it came up. The name of my company at the time was Airborne Image, because I was going to do web design, a bunch of other stuff that had to do with graphics, so it was important for me to have image in the title. And I was 101st Airborne for 4 years, for those of you who don't know, prior to getting out and starting into airsoft. But I went in there, and somehow it was Drew Wilson who worked there at the time, and he asked me if I was prior military. I was like, yeah, I was prior military. So, of course, that starts up a conversation instantly anytime you're talking to another prior military person. And there was another guy there working whose son, they both purchased tickets. And he's like, do you play airsoft? I was like, yeah, I used to. I still have a bunch of gear in storage. And he's like, well, my son was going to go to this event, here in Oklahoma, but he can't now. Do you want his ticket? So it was a totally random event.
Yeah.
I went in there, and the guy had a free ticket, gave me a free ticket, and I drove down there and I played. Yeah. And I was hooked. Yeah. Instantly hooked.
Yeah, I felt the same way. The reason I started going to the AMS events was, once again, Red Wolf was a sponsor.
Yeah.
Rob would go out there and set up the Wolf Den, which was this area that players could come into. We'd have music. We'd have the Red Wolf products on display. And then we'd also have, food, beverages there that were sponsored by or given to us by AMS. So yeah, so it was really cool to be able to to hang out with my best friend again.
Yeah,
I mean, we hadn't seen each other in 6 years. Yeah. 6 years, and then B, to be able to experience milsim. I mean, airsoft is great, playing in your backyard. I think after a little bit probably gets a little bit boring. Playing at a local field, it's still fun to me. I go down to DFW Adventure Park quite a bit and play down there with my friends. John Google, who runs Zero Customs. If you need a good gun, go to John. Good plug. So, I still enjoy playing local games. I think it's a good way to go out and test out new kit.
Yeah.
If your gun's been worked on, it's a good opportunity to get out there and test your gun, or, make sure your stuff's ready for the next big milsim event. Because if you're going to spend that much money to travel, pay for the ticket, you want to make sure that you get there and your gun doesn't break immediately or your gear doesn't work properly. So I like playing local airsoft skirmishes. Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah.
But I truly enjoy the milsim aspect of it more.
Yeah. Now, would you recommend starting locally before you try and go to a major milsim event, or do you think it's possible for you to just go and jump right into it?
I think, and so this is one of those things that I've been thinking about for a while. I think if a young person wants to get into airsoft,
yeah,
first off, I think one of the problems that I've seen with maybe the younger generation these days is they don't want to put any time into doing any kind of research.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most important things that you can do with any kind of hobby. And so I think they automatically want to get onto maybe Facebook or Instagram and just be like, ask people to spoon feed them this information. Yeah. And a lot of times you can't, in a comment section, type out everything that you need to consider when you're getting into a new hobby. And I think part of the problem is people see pictures of these guys decked out in all their kit, and they want to immediately emulate that picture.
Which for 90% of America isn't feasible at all.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of money and time that goes into gathering up all that and putting it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one of the first things that anybody that wants to get into airsoft should look at is do some research, watch some YouTube videos. And when I say research, I think they need to be looking to see if there's a local field in their area that they can go and try. I mean, a lot of times, like down at DFW or Venture Park, John rents guns and masks. And so you can go down there and fully experience airsoft before you really put any kind of large sums of cash into buying kit or guns, because you need to find out if you're even going to enjoy it first. Yeah. You may see it and you may think, oh, this looks cool, but until you get out and actually experience it, you may not even like it.
Right.
And so don't do yourself a disservice in buying all this kit and then finding out you don't like it to only have to either try to resell that kit at a lower price. Mm-hmm. But definitely, I think doing your research, finding out if you have a local field, going out and renting some equipment for 2 or 3 weekends in a row, and find out if you really enjoy doing airsoft. Yeah. And then I would say from there, start slowly buying what you can afford.
Emphasis on slowing.
Yeah.
Slowly buying what you can afford.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, rough estimate, how much have you spent on airsoft equipment to get your gear to the point where you really like it?
Oh, dude, thousands.
Yeah, thousands.
Easily thousands. Easy.
I mean, a good plate carrier, $400 or $500.
Yep.
If you want to put real plates in it, there's another $400 or $500. Not everybody does that. I do it because I still work with a gun. I'm in law enforcement, for those of you who don't know. Yeah. But I mean, real plates, fake plates are fine. But I mean, magazines, like good magazines, like EPMs or whatever else you'd recommend. I mean,
GMP magazines.
Yeah, you're looking $20 a pop, and you probably want to have 20 of them.
Yep.
A good gun, just to get it, $400 to $500. And
then and I think you brought up a point there with the gun. I think there are a lot of guys want to go and try to get this gun that's going to be like this amazing gun right out of the box. And I think just like with real steel shooting, guys automatically want to buy an AR and immediately start throwing all this stuff on it. Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily, and once again, this is my opinion, I don't necessarily agree with that being the right course of action. I think that you should still spend the time on basic rifle marksmanship, building the fundamentals, and then once you have mastered those and spent a lot of time doing it, then if you want a red dot or if you want a magnified scope or whatever, you can start adding those things. But if you don't know the fundamentals, right, it can definitely give you some training scars in the future. Yeah, definitely.
So and there are some ways around the cost too, like we were just talking about. If you get in with the milsim community, like playing with guys at your local field, I found that they're more than willing to help you out.
Absolutely.
I borrowed uniforms. I borrowed guns. I wasn't financially where I am now whenever I first started playing. Yep. Like I said, I just gotten out of the military. Yep. And infantry doesn't qualify you for anything in the civilian world because legally you can't go around killing people. It's not a position. Yep. I borrowed it. At ESR, the first thing I ever played with was an HPA gun, which I still don't own to this day. I don't own an HPA. Just, I don't know. There's too much cost and work involved in getting it set up, I guess.
So talking about guns, I think the big thing there is there are a lot of good. I think what someone should do is when they look at airsoft, and once again, remember, there's a difference between airsoft and milsim. Yeah. The definition of milsim I was just looking up, and it's obviously stands for military simulation, and it's basically reenacting or creating an environment or immersing yourself into an environment that is like or simulates what it's like to be in the military and be in combat.
Right. And I've been interchanging the two a lot. So when I say airsoft on this show, we still mean milsim. Yeah. They're still called airsoft guns, I guess. Yep. And that's one of the reasons I interchange it so much. But it's milsim that we play. Airsoft is more of a recreational, like, go play on the weekend type game.
Skirmish game or a local field game.
You looked up the definition, didn't you?
Yeah.
I actually give them the definition of milsim.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull that back up here real quick. So one of the ones that I liked as far as the definition goes is, hold on, let me find it. Milsim is an abbreviation of military simulation, and it refers to the simulation of a combat environment for training or recreational purposes. Milsim games range from strict reenactments of specific battles in history to made-up scenarios complete with fictitious nations, factions, and non-combatants. And that's usually what you see at an American Milsim event, or a Third Coast Airsoft, or a John Lew event, or a Milsim West.
Yeah. So when you show up at those events, you're wearing a specific uniform. For your team.
Color, camo.
Yeah, or camo. Yeah, camo. You can interchange kit, but you're green, you're tan. And there's different types of green, like multicam and all that stuff falls into tan, and different types of green.
M81, multicam Tropic, Ranger Green all falls into the green side, multicam.
But it's a lot more strict than your weekend play.
Yes.
Where you can show up in jeans and a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Or shorts and a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
And you're also there. You're going to have rules on your guns. You can't be shooting full auto unless you're a machine gunner. You can only shoot certain feet per second with some guns, depending on whether you're running a DMR, sniper rifle, or your role. Like what do they call? Is it an assaulter or a rifleman?
Yeah, so rifleman or DMR or
which
light,
is your,
or a LMG.
Your designated marksman. Yeah, which can shoot a little bit harder, but you have to have a standoff distance.
Sure.
And same with the LMGs and the sniper rifles. LMGs can't even enter buildings, or they have to shoot outside of the building if they do enter it. Correct.
They can be in the building and shoot out the window.
Right.
If they are going to shoot within the building, they got to shoot with a secondary weapon that is of a lower FPS.
Yeah.
And
which even in real world, if you're clearing a building with a machine gunner, you're going to get some interesting results.
Absolutely.
But so when we talk about airsoft, we talk about milsim. When we talk about milsim, we're obviously talking about milsim. What
I was getting at with the younger players when they come on board, find a gun or a brand of gun that you can upgrade. Yeah. Most of the guns, I know I started my son. Most of you guys know him as Stone. I started my son out with a Elite Force. It was the M4 CQC. It's a plastic bodied gun. And it was
fairly inexpensive.
Good price point. I think it was under the $150 price point. The Elite Force guns are really, as far as I consider them to be, really, really good guns at, and they have obviously different price point guns that you can get into. But as far as a good entry level gun, I couldn't ask for something better for him because it was lightweight. When he started, he was he was only 11. Yeah. And his first game was, he never played a skirmish, never played backyard, never played a weekend game at a local field, had never even been shot by an airsoft gun before. And his first game was American Milsim Ironclad 2. Wow. Now, and I preface this, I get a lot of people going, well, how did your 11-year-old get to go to an AMS event? Well, it took a lot of work on my behalf to talk to the founders of AMS and reassure them that, he would follow the rule set. So it wasn't like he just showed up. Yeah. I mean, we got permission ahead of time for him to go out there and play that event. And he followed the rule set, was an honorable player. Obviously was very respectful of the older players. Didn't show up. Most of you, if you know Stone, he's a very quiet individual.
Yeah, he's kind of he's an abnormality for kids his age.
Absolutely,
he's very calm and collected. Whereas I think a lot of kids his age would freak out. On the field.
Especially with bangers and stuff going off in buildings. Exactly. I mean,
it's a pretty intense environment to throw your kid into.
Yeah,
but
so
he's very capable of doing it.
Yeah,
we've been to multiple events together.
And Ironclad 2 is a mount a mount environment, which, if you don't know what mount stands for, military operations in urban terrain. So it's a CQB environment, very close quarter shooting. A lot of flashbangs going off, a lot of smoke going on. So for him to come out and that be his first event and enjoy it. And it was his first time to ever get shot by an airsoft gun. He absolutely fell in love with it. Yeah. And so once again, that whole year of him starting at the age of 11, we asked for permission from the founders of AMS every event. Yeah. And every event, he came out and proved himself to be respectful, honorable player that followed the rule set and did what he was supposed to do. And he's now 14. and absolutely loves the game of airsoft or milsim.
That is their cutoff, right? 14?
14 is where they start.
Okay.
For American milsim.
Yeah,
now,
sorry, their starting point.
So the other thing I would suggest to anybody is make sure that when you are getting started into airsoft or milsim, make sure you go to the website for that particular field or that particular event and read the rule set.
Right.
Make sure you understand what the age limit is. With American milsim, which we speak a lot of because that's the events that Corey and I have a tendency to go to the most of, their start point is 14. But that means they have to have, I believe, a guardian there.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be on the field with them, but the guardian has to be there.
Yeah.
And then I believe, if I remember right, at the age of 16, they can attend with somebody that is has signed a waiver form or a transfer of guardianship. So it doesn't necessarily have to be their parent at the age of 16.
And that's almost anything that has to do with any type of recreational sport or hobby. Until you're 18, pretty much somebody's signing for your liability.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's not anything out of the ordinary.
So yeah, I think do your research. Obviously the first things that you got to have to start into airsoft is a gun.
Yep.
A mask of some sort. I would say that if you're under the age of 18, you might as well be prepared to wear a full mask.
Right.
Or
like
at least
like a paintball mask?
Yeah, like a paintball mask or half mesh mask.
Okay.
One Tigress is making one that's mesh in the middle and then soft on the sides of the cheek, where it's a little bit more comfortable, and it's become very popular. But obviously, a mask, full seal goggles. Guys, listen, it's got to be full seal. We still show up at events with adults that try to slide by with sunglasses or,
Right. And to hit on that, back when we were playing just pretty much backyard, airsoft, I would wear a hat and I would wear safety glasses. That was it. They weren't full seal. They were just safety glasses. The same safety glasses I wore whenever I worked at the machine shop that I was working at.
Yeah.
And there was one time that a BB hit the bill of my cap, bounced down, shattered on the top of my glasses, bounced back up and hit my cap again, and then went into my eye.
Yeah.
So I can attest to the fact that it is super important to wear full seal goggles. If you want to wear glasses, get the Oakley M frames with the Helo kit.
Or the new Alphas.
Or the new mine are Alphas.
Yeah.
Sorry, mine are Alphas.
Yeah, so I rode the M frame 3.0s with the Helo kit. Corey's now wearing the Alphas with the Helo kit. Some people, and you got to remember, any goggle, any glasses, you got people that swear by certain ones that they don't fog, but I think everybody has their own experience with goggles and glasses, so don't be surprised if you end up buying a lot of different kinds of full seal eye pro until you find the one that works best for you.
Yeah.
So you might try some of the cheaper ones first, like a full seal just goggle. Anything that's super low profile, you got to remember when you start running and getting hot, when there's that little volume from your eye to the lens, that's what I mean by low profile, is there's going to probably be an issue with fogging. So I found personally that the M-frames with a Helo kit works very, very well for me.
You get a lot more airflow, I find.
Yeah. I tried the boogies, the Smith boogies in the past.
Yeah.
I think if you're jumping out of an airplane, they probably work awesome. But as far as on the field, I had tried them at a game back in 2014, and they fogged instantly on me.
Yeah. I tried the old goggles, or the standard issue goggles, is what I started playing in initially, and they were okay, but they're bulky and hot. And then I had is it Balkan that makes the Zulus?
Yeah.
The Zulus. I know a lot of people love the Zulus, so I can't say anything negative about those.
Our good friends Nemesis Airsoft team.
Yeah.
They all run the Zulus and swear by them.
Yeah. And I think I might actually own a pair, but I lose them a lot.
Yeah.
I think the only good thing about buying something expensive is you tend to care for it more.
Yeah,
so mine always sit up on the shelf over there.
Yeah.
And they don't move until I go to events, and then they stay with me or in my pocket the whole time.
Yep.
But they are pricier. But
sure.
Those are the ones I would swear by.
Yeah. And so I would say that, once you find, or even let somebody, if somebody's, nice enough to let you try a pair out of certain kind that you might want to look into purchasing, once you find those, never be afraid to drop. That's one of the things I would say that it's worth dropping money into.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, the great thing about Oakley is if you're a vet or if you're law enforcement, if you have a DD-214 as a vet, when we get out of the military, we get a DD-214. You can send that into the Oakley Standard Issue site, website, and you can actually submit your DD-214. And from there, you can get a lot of great Oakley products at a lower price point.
Yeah. So, make friends with a veteran or a cop.
Yeah.
Because I think I save about $60 on each pair of Oakley.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
So we talked about gun, obviously some kind of face protection for those folks under the age of 18. Now, if you're over 18, I run a mouth guard. That's personally what I like.
Yeah.
The reason I don't run a face mask is I do in certain CQB environments.
I always wear one in CQB.
Yeah. Especially if it's a very dark CQB environment. I just don't feel like getting blasted up in the face.
Yeah.
The nice thing about having a beard is it hides a lot of those.
Yeah.
If you get it in the beard. But I think Robo Murray's beard once stopped a BB.
Yeah.
And it caught it.
Yeah.
Maybe myth. I don't know. But I was there.
If the beard doesn't, your face will.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people, I mean, it'll penetrate. Close range, BBs will penetrate. That's why in CQB, I mean, a lot of times when you're engaging somebody in CQB, you're lucky to get 10 to 15 feet.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a BB that's going 400 feet per second.
Yep.
So it's getting there.
So,
I'm not even going to try and do the math.
So
it'll penetrate and it'll welt. I don't mind having welts all up and down my arms.
Yep.
But for somebody who's it's important when the public sees your face all the time.
Yep.
Like as a police officer, if I showed up with welts all over my face, people would be like, "What's wrong with him?"
Yeah. And I do medical and I do medical sales. So for me to show up in a hospital,
so
with
I like
with my face tore up.
I like to wear the mask, especially in CQB environments, because it saves my face and it saves my teeth, because somebody loses a tooth at every single airsoft event, or milsim event. Every single milsim event, somebody loses a tooth.
Well, we were at Black Site, American Milsim's Operation Black Site over in Anniston, Alabama, a couple weekends ago, and Corey Saltsider from Nemesis Airsoft Team, great friends of ours. He took a BB to the face, and literally it was stuck. It wasn't that night, we couldn't tell because it was swollen. But the next morning, luckily we had Justin Bateman there, who is a good friend of ours. You can follow him on Instagram at Angry Canadian. He's the 2016 TACMed champion, as an anesthesiologist in real life, and then he does a lot of TACMed courses. But he was able to actually do a little bit of cutting on Corey's face and pop the BB out right on the spot. So I personally run a mouth guard most of the time. I run a SISU, SISU. Mm-hmm. They have a great dental insurance. If you take a BB to the mouth and that mouth guard didn't protect your teeth, they cover, I think, up to like $20,000 or $30,000 worth of dental insurance.
Wow.
So yeah, definitely eye protection, face protection, a gun, and then maybe some way to, obviously if you're just getting into it, most of the local fields will let you run a high cap magazine, which is obviously a magazine that holds, around 300 BBs. Yeah. And then you wind it at the bottom.
Yeah, I would recommend getting away from that as quick as you possibly can. Yeah, local fields will let you run them. I mean, a lot of local fields are letting you run full auto too. Yeah. So if you're running full auto, high caps are nice. Yeah. One, they're not tactical, because they're gonna jingle and rattle a lot, because all those BBs, especially the lower the count gets in there, they're gonna rattle. But no milsim events that I know of let you carry high caps.
No, and none of the
thing you're gonna get is probably like the drum mags on your LMGs.
Yeah, and so most milsim events, once again, like we mentioned earlier, obviously you're semi-auto only.
Yeah.
So your need for a high round count is not necessarily there at the same, and you're not going to be shooting every 5 seconds at a milsim event.
Well, and also you need to get used to reloading.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a big deal.
So obviously you'll have some money in magazines, and then maybe some way to carry it. I mean, that's really all you need to start.
There are chest rigs as cheap as $15.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's super important to have something to carry your empty magazines in and your stuff that could fall off in the game. Things you have to switch out.
I see too many kids when I go to the local events, and even when I go to the big milsim games. Too many people, not just kids. I'm sorry. Too many people that all of a sudden, they come back into the fob and they're like, "Oh, I lost a pistol mag," or I lost a rifle mag.
Yeah.
I know in past life when we were in the military, you probably did it as well. We dummy corded a lot of stuff to us.
Everything
Everything was
with a serial number, had 550 cord.
Yeah.
Tied down to your vest.
Tied to the sensitive item and then tied to you. So, that's an option that you can do in milsim or airsoft so you don't lose stuff. Obviously a lot of pistols get lost. Stone recently lost his M&P 9C out at Black Site because we didn't have a lanyard on it.
And that's something you have to be prepared for. When you play airsoft, you're going to lose a lot of
stuff. Yeah.
Just be prepared for it.
So, I think you can find ways of carrying your ammo, like you said, a cheap chest rig, or even a lot of the, you can go on eBay and buy a lot of these cheap Chinese plate carriers. Yep. You don't have to spend a ton of money to get started.
No.
I would recommend that you spend less time on building your kit starting out and more time getting out and playing. We see the same thing with Real Steel. You got all these guys that sit there and spend all this money on these guns and red dots on pistols and red dots on rifles, but yet they spend no time out at the range shooting.
Yep.
And so I would tell you that if you were to take the basic fundamentals of marksmanship and take that money and dump it into ammo, you're going to be a much better shooter when it comes time to actually start upgrading your stuff.
Right. Yeah. And, YouTube is a great resource for a lot of things. You can go on there and you can look at guys doing CQB stuff. But you have to be wary of what you're watching. A lot of guys that are airsofters or milsimmers that are putting stuff out there aren't necessarily doing it correctly. It might look cool, but they're not necessarily doing it correctly. And if you're like, oh man, but that guy got like a 15 kill streak, keep in mind a lot of times that stuff is edited. We know some guys that are YouTubers and they're great guys and they're very skilled, but there are a lot of guys out there that are just trying to make names for themselves, and what they're putting on there isn't accurate.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really portray how good they are on the field. When I say go look at YouTube, look for ex-military guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that teach home defense, which a lot of that is clearing corners, pine corners, room clearing type stuff.
And what is the field manual? I bring this up because we were talking about research, but what is the field manual for infantry tactics where they can go?
Dude, you're gonna put me on the spot. I can't remember. It's like 7 something. 7-8.
7-8. Yes, there you go. So you got to remember, a lot of times some of those manuals in the military may not be updated, or you may be looking at an older one. So there are newer tactics that have evolved over our time in the global war on terrorism. And so that may be where you want to jump to YouTube as well and try to see if any of those tactics have maybe changed.
Yeah. And also use the people you meet at the fields as a resource, because there's a lot of veterans, a lot of LEOs floating around, and at the very least, a lot of skilled milsim players that have taken the time, like Robo Murray. Robo Murray has no experience in the military or law enforcement, but the dude's good enough to transition from airsoft to real world shooting, and now he's training police officers in Canada.
Absolutely.
Or he's about to start. I don't know exactly where
he's helping. He's working with a consulting firm, and he is teaching carbine classes and pistol classes, and
but the dude's got the tactical mindset like on lock.
Yeah,
like he's one of the more intelligent guys we talk to. He's a close friend of ours.
Yes, so. And very talented. I would highly suggest, if you're not following Robo, he's probably, as far as I'm concerned, like you mentioned earlier, is not having a military background. He is one of those guys that is so focused on learning those things that he is interested in that he is completely immersed himself into.
Yeah. And I would recommend his YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
Now, and I've heard people say, oh, well, he doesn't do a whole lot of shooting. It's not all action. Well, it's not edited. It's actual, like it's milsim events, and it's pretty much start to finish what we're doing. There might be some cuts, when we're walking around, but there might be long periods where you're not shooting, and it's just videos of clearing buildings and that's corners, and that's what you need to get used to.
Exactly. And that's the segue into a good point. Is what we found, or what we've identified a lot of times at the bigger AMS events. Now that I'm, I help out with a leadership position on the TAN team, the TAN faction, the UFS side. What I've seen is, because multicam is one of the favorite patterns for newer players. Most newer players that are into airsoft that want to transition to milsim or come out to a milsim game and try a milsim game, usually have the only kit they have is multicam.
Right.
It's very easy to get multicam surplus uniforms at your local Army Navy store.
Yeah.
And so they end up being on the tan faction. So I get a lot of these newer airsoft. We get a lot of these newer airsoft players that their first milsim event, like just at Black Site a couple weeks ago, that was their first milsim event. And so the thing to remember about transitioning from that airsoft local field play into milsim is there is going to be times that you're standing around. There are going to be times that you're standing around guarding something that doesn't make any sense to you as to why you're guarding it, but it is part of the bigger picture for that faction to maybe accomplish a mission, achieve an objective, or capture an objective. So there is rhyme or reason to why you're standing there guarding that certain thing.
Right. There's patience involved. And I mean, one of the more famous sayings in the military is what?
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. So a lot of guys, if you can't transition into that mindset, if you can't sit there and realize like, hey, if I'm on a guard post, it's important. Then maybe milsim isn't for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe just play airsoft at your local field, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or go try speedsoft if you want that fast action stuff. Yeah. I can't stand speedsoft. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
It's just a gaggle of guys in a very condensed space, running around shooting each other. But there are some people like Matt from Evic and Ryan, they love it and they're great at it. Yeah. I played with them down at high ground and they tear people up.
Yeah.
I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
Because I like the slow, methodical military movements.
And we were trained as veterans or former military. We were trained that if you rush into some kind of action with no situational awareness, the consequences are death.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I found that when I started shooting IDPA was, IDPA is International Defensive Pistol Association, and what it is a game of or a competition of speed versus accuracy.
Yeah.
And so when my buddy and I got into it, my buddy was so much faster than me, but I shot more accurately than him.
Right.
But it just so happens that in that equation, his speed would outpoint my accuracy. Yeah. So I literally got him to start taking some video of me. And the thing that I noticed is instead of, in competition shooting, you're full out sprinting to a corner and then pieing that corner very quickly and then getting rounds on target. I was sprinting to the corner and then I'd slow way down and I would pie that corner very, very cautiously because that's how I was trained to do it.
Well, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. And so because the second place there is death.
Yeah.
And then I found out, I just need to go ahead and do it because that cardboard target is not going to be shooting back at me.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of that mindset.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, it's not really one that I want to drop. Like I want to stay in that mindset because there's a lot of.
Well, you being a cop, you can't afford to.
Exactly.
So let's not get too far off course.
Right.
But what we're trying to say is, definitely if you're an airsofter, go out and try a milsim event.
Yes.
But
absolutely, what
we're trying to tell you is, or inform you of, is be prepared. There is a difference, and that difference may be enough for you to say, milsim's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And you may just want to play your local game. Like we mentioned earlier, milsim, there's a lot of time that you're standing around waiting to go do something, waiting for a mission to come down or a fragmentation order, to go capture a different objective.
So if you had to say there are three main differences, what would they be? Just give me three.
I would say the level of kit that's involved. Obviously, when you go out to do milsim, radios. Everybody that knows me knows that I harp on radios.
Yeah, communication is key in this.
The term we use in the military is move, shoot, communicate.
Yeah.
I've seen entire battalions, and you've probably seen it as well, get ready to cross the line of departure onto an operation, and they weren't able to get comms with everybody, and it will literally bring an entire battalion of soldiers to a dead stop.
Oh, yeah.
Because in that environment, without communications, you could have an incident of fratricide. Once again, second place is death.
Yeah.
So although we're not talking about someone dying in airsoft or milsim, I think if you're coming out to a milsim event to be part of a team, then you have to have communication with your team. And so once again, I harp strongly on radio use. At a minimum, having some kind of radio, and I'm not saying have a Midland or a Cobra or a Motorola.
Right.
Those things don't, although the package says 35-mile range, guys, it doesn't work that way. So you got to have, at a minimum, go on eBay, find you a Baofeng. What is that one? The UV5R is probably one of the more popular
and it's
ones.
What? $20, $30?
Yeah, $20 or $30, man.
And they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, their range is at least 2 miles.
And the reason being is they're a 5-watt radio.
Yeah.
You have a low power and a high power, and that high power is 5 watts, and you can push much, much further. So you definitely want to have a radio at that milsim event. So that's, I think, the kit aspect of it. Oh my God. The kit aspect is, radio, and then obviously you're going to have more advanced kit as far as...
What is this? Your first podcast, Jay? Dad?
Yeah. Sorry about that, but that's Mrs. Woodcock trying to call me right now.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Yeah, no.
You can tell her where
So
you're
that's
going.
one. I think the level and kit difference. I think number 2. You said 3, right? I got to come.
Yeah. Well, give me one more. Then I'll give you my 3, which are probably the exact same.
Yeah. So number 2 obviously is going to be the not action all the time.
Yeah.
It's going to be, like you said, a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of standing around. So I think that's something that some people just can't adjust to.
So you would say kit communication and pacing.
Yeah. There you go.
I would. Yeah, that's pretty much. Mine falls under kit, but I would say the cost.
Yep.
I would say the pacing of the game, and just to give something different, the physical aspect. You need to be in some type of shape to go out there and enjoy it. If not, you're not going to make it to the second day, which we see a lot.
Yes.
A lot of people staying in the fob the second day or just not showing up. And if you're going to dump, I mean, let's say American Milsim average $200. $200 for a ticket. If you're driving, $100 in gas.
Yes.
Let's just say $100 to be conservative.
If you're camping, you could save a little bit money.
If you're camping,
but you're still going to have to eat.
Yep, you're going to have to eat.
So that means an ice chest with food.
And your travel, you're looking at 3 to 4 days. So you're eating for 3 to 4 days.
Yeah. If you're staying in a hotel, you're probably talking anywhere from $50 to $100 a night.
Yeah.
And then you get to the event. You're gonna have to have BBs, obviously.
Right.
$20 a bottle?
I spend $150 the second I hit the ground at every event.
Yeah.
On BBs, grenades, smoke.
CO2 if you're running CO2.
I'm always missing
gas.
some piece of equipment, maybe a spare battery.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I mean, you figure you're figuring $750
to $1,000
per game
is what I would say. Yeah, easily. So I mean, even at the events where I've sold shirts, normally it's just enough to cover my travel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't do terrible when we sell shirts.
Yeah, and we usually travel together because we live in the same area.
And that's another thing.
Yeah, carpool.
Split the costs of travel. Split the costs of food. I mean, if you know somebody that has like a portable grill, bring your food. The idea, if you want to do it, you really want to do it and try and make it cost effective for you.
Yep. And you can even get on the American Milsim forum and put out, hey, traveling to the next game coming up is RDG, so reindeer games down at Fort Hood.
Right. Because outside the guys that worked at TA, I didn't know there was anybody else from Oklahoma. And I mean, when was the first time we found out that we lived close to each other? Copperhead?
Yeah.
Copperhead, I think, was the first time we even talked.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And then after that, we've traveled.
Faded.
What was the other one?
34 too.
Yeah, and 34.
Yeah.
And then
obviously reindeer games if you get to go.
Yeah, reindeer games if I'm healed up by then.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to have a partner.
So back to what you were saying though, physical shape.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend that kind of cash to come out to an event, to not be in some kind of physical shape, to where you're able to complete 2 days of play.
Yeah.
You're really kind of
shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, wasting some of that money.
Yeah, of that money. Because I'll be honest with you, normally Sunday plays out a lot faster and it has it more action than Saturday.
And so those guys that do like airsoft,
they'll get that on Sunday.
You'll get that on Sunday
90% of the time.
Yeah,
because they it's a shorter time, so they push everybody closer together.
And then most guys are like, I can go full out today because the only thing I got to do is drive home,
right?
As opposed to play a whole nother game the next day.
Yes.
And so, like personal example myself, I'm 45. I've got 3 kids. I literally went to 34-2 at about, I'm 5'7", went there at about 200 pounds almost.
Yeah.
Which most people 5'7" at 200 pounds are obese. Did I look obese? No. From the front, no. But from the side, I saw a picture where Robo Murray's looking epic, throwing a grenade. You're taking a knee. I'm taking a knee, and then I look at myself from the side, and I literally look like I'm 4 feet wide. And so for me, one of the things that my wife and I decided to do was get back into shape.
Yeah.
And so this whole past summer, I've been focused on clean eating, doing cardio, and hopefully getting back into the gym and putting some muscle back on. Yeah. But I just got tired of feeling tired, especially being in a leadership role.
Right.
Because as a leader, you can't tell somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Well, if you're in a leadership role, you're moving back and forth a lot because you've got to control what's going on from the talk all the way to the front line.
Yeah. So beyond all popular belief that a lot of people think that, in this example, UFS command structure just hangs out in the fob all day, you're very, very wrong. I'm a leader that has always led from the front. You may not see me on the north end of the field because I may be handling a situation on the south end of the field.
I thought I was in good shape until we did that Guardian mission at Faded.
Oh, God.
That Justin, at Angry Canadian on Instagram, he put on for us. And the whole thing was it was really Robo.
Well, we had done 3.
Yeah, we had done multiple ones, but it was really they set it up for Robo to be challenging for him. And if you don't know, he's quite the athlete. It was to challenge him. And I would say like his athletic ability is way above ours.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for both of us, but yeah. And
at that time, and I was so heavy, I was heavy then too. So
yeah, but I decided to be team leader for it. So Woodcock or Jay, they were going to be the medics. That was their role.
Yeah.
So I was just controlling the front line and our rear security, and I was going back and forth and back and forth. And I thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, in the after action review that we did, Justin was like, "Dude, you did way too much."
Yeah.
He's like, "Don't do so much.
Yeah.
Do less."
Yeah.
No, do less. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard, when you're in a situation like that.
Well, especially being the medic,
especially in leadership.
Yeah, and I want to thank American Milsim for the direct action missions.
Yeah.
And the Guardian missions. I personally, and I think we've talked about it, I would personally rather do Guardian missions all day long, or a direct action mission all day long than do just the standard pew all day long.
Right, because it requires actual military tactics.
Yeah.
It requires some type of skill set, whether it's medic or infantry tactics.
It brought a lot of, at least my old, in the military, we all had to be combat lifesaver trained and be really focused, especially with the war on terrorism.
Right.
Being in Iraq, having a little bit higher skill set than we normally had to have when we were just back in garrison. So, it brought a lot of that skill set back to the forefront of my head.
Well, a lot of it, and I mean, those situations are a lot more stressful because to me, it's almost like, you go out, you roll around on the mat when you're training, you'll sweat, but you're not really physically exerting yourself like you would in a real fight.
Yeah.
So to me, it's almost like comparing training to the real fight whenever you go out there and you do the Guardian missions, because I mean, you're constantly being challenged. You constantly have people trying to flank you, maneuver on you while you're on the ground trying to medic somebody. And Justin and Frosty did an amazing.
And they're yelling at you and trying to make it as stressful as possible. Flashbangs going everywhere.
Flashbangs.
Yeah. Smoke.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
No, it was nuts.
Yeah. And so, especially
super physically exhausting.
Yeah, especially being the medic, you don't realize how important tactical breathing is.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there's actually apps that you can get on your phone that kind of teach you tactical breathing or even breathing for high stress situations. That what I found myself doing is, if you watch any of the video that I've posted up on Instagram in the past, is when I'm putting on a tourniquet or working with a patient, I'm actually sitting there talking to myself, trying to control my breathing, like slow down your breathing, and I literally try to control that, because next thing you know, you find yourself breathing so heavily. We saw in one of the Guardian missions, the first one we did at Broken Home 5. Robo and I were the medics on that one, and we were down in a ravine, and we had to literally use a high angle line to get the patient extracted up the hill. And what we found was, being our first event, even Robo found himself breathing so heavily he went into almost like an oxygen deprivation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he kind of like realized, holy crap, I'm in a situation here that I can't catch my breath.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
there's a joke about his breathing at Copperhead because it's a totally different elevation from where he lives, and that's another thing. The environment changes, especially if you're going to travel to an event.
Yeah, I mean Copperhead's 4,000 feet, I think.
Yeah, Oklahoma to Copperhead just killed me.
200 feet here, 4,000 feet in Copperhead.
Yeah, and I wasn't prepared for the winds. I came back with windburn. My face was all blistered up. Like it was terrible. I was not ready for Copperhead at all. It destroyed me. That was probably the hardest one. Broken Home's pretty difficult too, just because it's it's in the
summertime,
and
it's in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
with high humidity.
Yeah,
temperatures usually ranging 101, 99,
90 and 100.
Yeah, and so and then just the terrain. The terrain is a butt kicker,
and it rains like every year.
Yeah,
so the humidity's 100%.
Yeah.
But so I mean, just to wrap it up. All right, getting started in milsim, not airsoft, but milsim, making that transition. Brain fart. Cost, what you would spend on your kit, stuff like that has to be upgraded to some degree to go out and play at these more hardcore.
Well,
events.
and what we mean by that is it needs to be comfortable.
Yeah,
you need to play.
Right,
you need
to be able to carry what you need to carry
for a day out in the field.
Yeah,
because the last thing you want to do once again is pay all that money, travel all that way, and then get to the AO, play for the morning, and then get in your car, drive to get chow somewhere.
Yeah,
and then come back. You've lost 2-3 hours.
Yeah,
of playtime.
Yeah, so cost.
So
and, the pacing.
Yeah,
be ready for it to be slower than an airsoft game that
But there's going to be moments in there.
There will be moments that are epic, absolutely epic. When there's smoke grenades going off, flashbangs, people hawking grenades at you, vehicles driving through with miniguns on them. It's insane. I mean, at Broken Home, helicopters flying overhead.
Yeah, and you'll always have. I call it that one moment.
Yeah,
you'll have that one moment every milsim game that is so in your mind, so epic,
and it's worth every bit of $1,000.
Yeah, that is going to cause you to come back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's that one moment.
Yep.
So the pacing, and then physical fitness. You've got to care about yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to, one of the biggest things that I've seen is guys that at your local field, you may play a 10 or 15 minute, 20 minute skirmish game, go back to wherever your vehicle is and be able to drink all the water you want.
Yeah.
If you show up in a milsim game without some kind of hydration bladder, you've already failed.
Right, and there's a lot of great videos out there of people showing loadouts that they take to events. You don't have to match them because a lot of times those guys
you can get a cheap
$3,000.
Yeah, you can get a cheap used Camelback or a cheap Camelback for $20.
A lot of things that these guys have that are $500-$600, you can get a cheaper, just the cheapest version of it for $20 to $50.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I would recommend starting if finances are something that you have to concern yourself with.
Yeah. And remember, financial responsibility for whatever you have to do
first.
Always comes first.
Always comes first.
Hobby should come second.
Every time.
So, I think, if you show up without some kind of water source, you've failed for a milsim event. And then, once again, that communication piece. If you show up to a milsim event without a radio, in my mind, my opinion is you've kind of already failed as well in being prepared for that milsim.
Yeah, because there's a good chance at every milsim event. I mean, it's even happened to me with comms. You get separated from your squad.
Mm-hmm.
They all die off, and you're out there, laying underneath some bush while the enemy passes you by. And then once everything's cleared up, you get on the radio, try and call them up, and
your best bet at that point is just to try to link up with another unit and have fun.
Yeah, but it's a lot harder if you don't have comms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's sometimes you can raise somebody else on comms and link up with somebody else and continue moving forward.
Yeah.
But if you're out there without comms, don't be that guy that's out there screaming, what's going on, and giving away your position.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. I think that about covers everything for this episode, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a good talk, and hopefully it's helped out guys that are interested in milsim, or even guys that want to get started in airsoft. So hopefully we've captured on some things that may make it easier for you to make that decision moving forward on how you want to go about getting into the sport or moving from what may be airsoft to what some consider to be the next level, which is milsim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we appreciate you guys listening. Let us know what you think. This is the first time we've done it. It's something we've talked about doing for a long time.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Yeah, I did too.
I was really nervous starting out.
Yeah.
But, once you get into it and we're just having a conversation, it's fun. But leave your opinions in the comments. If you have questions, we would love to do a Q&A episode just to answer your questions directly. We're going to try and get some guests on here that are involved in the industry, maybe some guys outside the industry, because we'd like to talk about fitness and some other things as it relates to airsoft. But we'll post this up. We'll have this up on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you enjoyed it, let us know. If it was terrible, let us know.